you to our audience, Christine.
Thank you.
Christine is a therapist, resilient scientist, professor, author, and international keynote speaker with over 25 years of experience in counseling psychology. She is a founder of the award winning Center for Authentic Resilient Empowerment Care or Care Excellence and has delivered 450 plus presentations across 23 countries and 17 USA states based in the United States. And she teaches psychology and maintains a clinical practice in Philadelphia in 2025. She received two international awards recognizing her leadership and impact in mental health and education. That was a great bio, Christine, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited to be speaking to our audience here on how to cultivate resilience and to empower the next generation of leaders. I'm so thankful to be here and to be on this kind of global stage to discuss these important topics. I've already been introduced, but again, just 25 years of experience in counseling psychology. And I've given over 470 talks about topics related to resilience, mental wellness, and mental fitness. I currently teach at three colleges in New Jersey in the United States. And I have founded Care Resilience in 2018 to educate and consult people on the science of resilience and to use practices that can help us to be more resilient in as individuals, as groups, as businesses, as women, and women wear many hats, as we will see today. And so I'm so thankful to be here with all of you today to discuss how we can be more resilient leaders. And so when we look at things, we want to examine what is leadership. And we can have leadership in more than one thing, not just the CEO of a company, but leadership can be in our everyday lives, in our events, in our families, in everything that we do, we can exhibit leadership qualities. So, to better define this, a leader is someone who influences, who inspires, who guides individuals, teams, and groups to achieve a common goal. And in doing so, they're also helping to collaborate with this individual or individuals or groups and motivate them and have a positive change in their life. So, as you can see, this doesn't require titles. We don't always have to have titles. Titles are great, they're important. We push our kids to do well in school, we push ourselves to have degrees and titles, but we can do this in everywhere we go, even in the supermarket, even in and with our families and things like that, even in our communities. And those things don't need titles necessarily. But we do need certain qualities. And we're going to talk about some of those qualities today because that will inspire resilient leadership even when they face challenges. So we need qualities like boldness, empathy, courage, clear communication, resilience, and the ability to empower and again encourage others to reach their full potential. However, we don't always feel like we are leaders. Sometimes we have felt like this. And adversity is truly sometimes a part of life where we feel we're carrying the weight of everything on our shoulders, on our backs, and it doesn't feel like we have a lot of control. But it doesn't have to control us. And though adversity may exist, resilience exists as well. So, today we're going to be talking about topics like burnout. And I've talked about burnout quite a bit. A lot of people are stressed out by their work. We can see that stress can be actually beneficial. And we also want to show that even though there is adversity that can cause things like depression, anxiety, stress, even with things like COVID over the last few years, has the things have changed since COVID? There's been a lot more online work and things like that. Does that exacerbate stress or does that help? And then how to apply kind of resilience to help us to deal with these things. We're going to talk about what resilience is, how we can look at resilience from multi perspectives, and then also how to persevere and have grit and learn about that through the science of resilience and also what are the stages of resilience and the traits of resilience as well. So, studies have been done through many different ways, including the American Psychological Association. I have this one posted here from a few years ago, about 4 years ago now. And I like this study in particular because it was a few years after COVID, but now we're a few years removed from this. But it said that 63% of adults said that their lives have been forever changed since COVID. It's impacted us in terms of grief and loss, in terms of continued hardships, economic type things today, all kinds of things, war and global uncertainty, inflation, isolation. We hear news that is difficult every day. But this really tells us that what we need is community. And resilience is about adaptability and community, and that we could have resilient individuals as well as resilient communities. And so, resilience really starts with me. And that's what I'm hoping to teach us today. Resilience really starts with me, but it can grow into my community, it can grow into my schools, into my children's lives, into my family, into every part and facet of who I am. So, greater mental health for me and my community starts with me. But like I said before, we have stress, and stress can really be coming from a pleasant experience, let's say a promotion, and now I need to have more adjustment and abilities to kind of focus on certain things. But it can also be from negative experiences like losing your job or a health issue or a financial issue. And that can be coming, that's called distress. Excuse me, that comes from difficult situations, but stress can actually come from good situations as well. So, stress is the body's response to any demand that is placed on it, and we can either decide to adjust to those demands or not adjust to those demands and have a lot of difficulty. Stress on the green and yellow part of this chart helps us to stay motivated, to stay healthy, to have an optimal level of stress that will help us to be activated when we're feeling bored, to help us to be motivated. But if we move towards the red and the orange side of this chart, then that stress can make us fatigued and sick and exhausted and even burned out. But today we want to learn some skills about how to manage resilience so that we move away from the orange and the red and more into the green and the yellow so that we can use stress productively. So, stress can come from many different things, right? It can come from being overly ambitious, too much on our schedule, academic related stress, running late, traffic, too many responsibilities, technology not working, not spending enough time by ourselves to shut out the noise of the world, not spending enough time on downtime like vacations or with our family and loved ones, or even through relationship difficulties that can create a lot of difficulties and challenges for us as well. Stressors can also come from traumatic things where we are frightened, where we can be even thinking that something bad is going to happen, where we're confused or angry, and even when this happens, we can even become numb and not know how to function. But again, hopefully by the end of today, we will learn some resilience tools to help us to navigate these challenges. Women in general tend to also face a different level of burnout. Still tells us that we have the bulk of domestic labor at home, whether it's with our home, our relationships, our children. And so we have that in addition to our professional worlds, our work. And so women tend to wear many hats. We're caregivers, we're professionals. Again, we are parts of our community. And so all of these things added together can really confuse and cause a lot of stress for us. Statistically, research tells us that women are more stressed and burned out than men in some studies as a result of this situation. And they may be more affected by burnout than men, and even more so than working dads. In a recent LinkedIn study, it found that in 5,000 people studied, Americans in America, 74% of women in America said they were somewhat or very stressed in comparison to only 61% of men. And another study found that moms that are employed are 23% more likely to feel burned out than dads. And there are at least in the US 2.35 million working moms who have suffered burnout since COVID and until now. So that's about 6 years or so, because again there is unequal demands at home and at work and in community, and women also tend to make less money than the same work for men, and that lower income obviously means for more stress, less resources, things like that. There also tends to be more single family homes that are women headed, and they are less likely to be promoted than their male counterparts for the same work. So burnout tends to become a silent killer and doesn't allow us to show our full leadership when we are able to show those things because of the juggling of many different roles, and there isn't a balance as much as we would like, and so you end up kind of stressed out on both fronts, both at home and both outside in the workforce. So we are kind of burned out by a thousand paper cuts. It's not just one or two things that are happening, but we have all the schedules for all the family members. We know when things run out and we have to purchase more. We are caregivers for parents. We are caregivers for children. We hold the schedules, like I said, we hold the schedules of the community as well. And so there's many roles that we fulfill that can lead to burnout. And what people see is sometimes that we're on top of the world, but there are so many things underneath the surface that can impact who we really are. There can be bodily signs of stress, things like headaches, rashes, stomach aches. Um, Feeling kinds of stress like sadness, depression, anxiety, behavioral signs of stress, being clumsy or falling asleep more, things like that. And then thinking signs of stress, feeling muddled and not being able to think clearly. So all kinds of different things here listed in the body, mind, behavior, and emotions. And also, stress distorts the messages in our mind that tell us that we're unimportant, we're unwanted, we're alone, nobody can help us. And on the outside, again, we may look really good, but on the inside, we may feel very struggling and very stressed. So, if you are experiencing stress, sometimes we also experience myths along with our stress that we have mental health issues or we are weak. Excuse me. If we have stress. Um, or that we shouldn't get professional help, or that psychological issues are for quote unquote crazy people. We shouldn't put labels on people as well, or that we lack faith in ourselves or hope if we have these kinds of stressors. This isn't the right mentality. It is not a lack of faith or hope. It is not a weakness, and it is not just something that we can snap out of. But we can learn resilience things because approximately 1 in 5 adults everywhere, and particularly in the US here with these statistics, tell us that we experience some sort of stressor in any given year. And there are millions of people with struggle with these things. And we have to look at the frequency, intensity, and duration of their symptoms to determine what they're feeling and how to conduct treatment or at least support for these individuals. These things can manifest in many different kinds of mental disorders, things like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, personality disorders, substance use related disorders. And all of these disorders can be treated if we deal with them earlier. But my goal here today is not to talk about depression or anxiety or how sometimes these symptoms overlap and that there are different kinds of anxiety, but mostly to talk to you all about burnout and how we can apply resilience skills to these things to find better leaders. So burnout affects every part of who we are. It affects our body, it affects our brain, it makes us shut down and feel like we can't do certain things. Um, Stress does not necessarily cause burnout because if we handle the stress correctly, we won't burn out, but in general, burnout is an excessive and prolonged state of stress where we're feeling emotionally overwhelmed and drained. And therefore, we're unable to meet the kind of demands that are placed upon us. So we begin to lose interest, we begin to lose energy, we begin to lose motivation, and we wonder why are we in this place in the first place? Again, we have no energy, we feel helpless, we feel hopeless, we feel resentful and cynical, and nothing is improving these symptoms. We see every day as a bad day when we're burned out. We see that the majority of our day is spent on tasks that we don't want to do, tasks that are mind numbing or overwhelming. And it makes us feel like nothing that we're doing is making a difference. We feel drained, we feel tired, and we have all of these symptoms and even changes in sleep habits and appetite habits. We can be burning out if we are having a sense of failure or doubt, feeling helpless, feeling defeated, feeling like we have a lack of motivation, and people start to withdraw slowly from their responsibilities. This is a clear sign that usually things are overwhelming and we are working out of frustration, not out of motivation or interest or purpose. So, stress versus burnout are two different things. Stress, sometimes we overwork because we want the work to end and to be finished. We are overactive. We work with urgency and hyperactivity. Whereas with burnout, we have the opposite. Emotions are blunted, we are stressed out, we feel hopeless, we feel disengaged, we're not motivated, and we feel like everything is wrong and everything is damaged. And this may make us feel like we're, doing the wrong things. So prolonged stress is even greater than our abilities to cope. We have to start recognizing that, reversing that, and working with resilience. Sometimes we have to reframe our thinking. Sometimes we have to reevaluate our priorities and move things around. And we have to prioritize our health. We have to sleep well. We have to eat right. We have to exercise. We have to prioritize the things that give us purpose and meaning, and not just doing the work that we have to do and go through the motions. Again, for women, they have an extra thing called the mental load. This leads to significant stressors and exhaustion because of the disproportionate, again, amount of work as caregivers in their community, feeling invincible and invisible at the same time. Like, I can do anything, but I feel invisible. Nobody sees me. And there's a lot of social expectations as well. So examples are of burnout with women is, again, they're scheduling all the appointments for the household, they're remembering all the events and the birthdays and the anniversaries, they're planning everything, they're coordinating children and household supplies. But open communication with people to get some help is important and can help us get rid of this mental load and help us to be better leaders at home. Again, we can have health to being unwell. And in all of these categories, we can get treatment and support and encouragement and even resilience skills as well. I know I need help when there's a change in emotions, when there's a loss of interest, a change in sleeping habits, appetite, feeling out of control, and difficulty interacting with others. We need to take it seriously. Some people can even get to the point of wanting to harm themselves or remove themselves for a situation. So we want to understand that we need to get help in these situations and to take it seriously and listen. Research tells us that we can either give up when a situation happens, or we can just survive and continue to survive right at baseline, or we can recover. We dip below baseline and then come back up to baseline. But the goal of resilience research is to help us to thrive, to rise well above where we are supposed to be. And that's supposed to help us tremendously. There can also be lots of threats to our wellness, threats that are chronic and long term, or threats that are transient and short term. And in each of these things, we can achieve resilience to our stressors if we find balance over these eight main areas of our life. Oftentimes, when I'm talking to people and working with people and coaching them on resilience type things and helping them with skills, I find that people will focus on only one or two of these bubbles and not all eight. So, for example, they will focus on occupational or financial, but neglect things like spiritual or social health or environmental health or emotional health. And instead, they will only focus on one or two things. But instead, we want to be resilient. We want to move away from this person carrying the weight of the world on their shoulder to thriving, even if the environment around us is not very nurturing. So, how do we do that? We do that, first of all, by being bold leaders. And a bold leader is someone who is willing to take risks and act innovatively with confidence. And I will also say with discernment. You're not just jumping into things without discernment, but with confidence and courage due to our convictions and our values. So, based on what our beliefs and our values are, we can be bold and we can be resilient. Characteristics of boldness is also related to courage. This can be mental or moral courage. It can help us to take, again, discerning risks and help us to feel good that we have faith through our discernment that we will have a good outcome. In this faith, we have awareness and clarity of our conviction and our abilities and our power, and knowing that we may not know the outcome, but we're not going to be timid about things and we're going to move with things boldly against once we have researched things, and we're going to face our fears instead of facing them with being fragile. Fear can actually be adaptive, but fear is the inability to handle our emotions or our social challenges. And this can often lead us to be avoidant or anxious or broken or overwhelmed. But fear um, can be something that helps us to think before we act. So when people are paralyzed by fear, they're trying to think about what to do next because it can be connected to real life situations. Sometimes we don't know what's going to happen. Like during COVID, this is one of the fears that people experienced. They didn't know what was going to happen next. There were no treatments, there were no tests, there was nothing. And so, how could we know what's going to happen next? This happens a lot too, even in the corporate world, even in our family. What should we do next? And that fear of the unknown may make us hesitate to act. But fear comes from that uncertainty. It can also come from lack of control. It can also come from a fear of a specific thing, like, let's say, spiders. But fear comes when we separate ourselves from what is anchoring us, what our values are. And sometimes we can even develop anxiety. When we face new stressors, we need to adapt. And so, in any leadership position, a leader needs to know how to adapt to any new stressor. This can be problematic and confusing and discouraging, but with the mindset of, I'm going to go into this, and even if I don't know, I'm going to adapt, I'm going to take it step by step and grow as I go, that can really help me quite a bit. Fear can be beneficial again when it gives you a pause and helps you to identify risky behaviors. It helps you to be motivated sometimes. You can look at problematic situations and see what is causing our issues. But in the right spaces, it can help us, not just hinder us. It helps us to more critically examine a situation as well, but we have to have it in the right doses, not too much, not too little. Courage does not mean that we're not afraid. It does not mean that there is no fearful things. It is the resistance to fear and the mastery of fear, not the absence of fear. Courage by bold leaders can come in terms of physical courage, taking a step, even in if there are times of hardship. And moral courage helps us to face personal loss and difficulty and even discouragement simply to follow our values and what we know is true. And courage is also sometimes not this big roar, but something that just tells us that I will try again tomorrow. Courage is also one of the values of the 24 character strengths that research tells us we all have inside of us. These 24 character strengths are listed from 1 to 24 in terms of what is your highest and what is your lowest. And as you can see, bravery is one of those things. These things are broken down into six categories. The categories are not even, not all of them have four. Some of them have three, like humanity and justice, but others have four or even five characteristics. Courage takes wisdom, boldness, and action. And bravery is not shrinking from a fear, it's the ability to persevere, to be honest, and to have some sort of vitality and energy for the life that you're in your business and as a leader. It also is important to fight our fears and enhance our boldness or courage by facing it. A lot of times we want to be like this guy and hide our head in the sand and pretend that there is no problems, there's no difficulties, there's no challenges. But research tells us that when we face things boldly, we actually do better. We want to fight fear with facts and not just by misinformation. So, a lot of times when we listen to the news, we want to be careful with the amount of information that we consume. We want to understand, is the source reputable from where we're getting this? And we also want to think about our thoughts and feelings that arise and be proactive rather than reactive. I want to interact with information and not just give up anytime there's a problem. There's lots of research also that talks about fighting fear with fun and humor. Not everything has to be so serious all the time, and we find that humor actually improves our heart rate, immune function, and temporarily relieves stress. We do need to find more long term solutions, but this is at least good in the short term. We want to fight fear with action, take small steps to go beyond our negative thoughts and actions, and to build things with confidence. That's really important as well. We want to cope with our feelings in certain ways. And the best way to do this is to solve problems as they come and handle our emotions as we're dealing with them, but also to accept rather than bottle in our emotions. We also want to practice gratitude. And there's more research I will show you in a few minutes but this opens up our mind and allows us to problem solve a little bit better. We also want to increase use of these 10 positive emotions because research tells us this is actually what opens and broadens our mind's perspectives to be able to problem solve a little bit better. We want to help each other out. That boosts our mood and the mood of the person that we are helping, and that creates a ripple effect in our community. We want to foster fear with connection. Good leaders don't do everything by themselves and they don't dictate in like a dictatorship kind of way to their team. Instead, they foster community and connection and collaboration. And fostering connection has been connected with longevity, immune health, impacting of our genes, decreasing depression and anxiety, increasing empathy, and improving things like social and physical and well being. It also increases our confidence and generates a positive feedback loop, meaning the more connection, the healthier we are, the more that we create more connection. Again, we want to fight fear with those 24 character strings. We also want to fight it with meaningfulness. And just in the interest of time, I'm just going to kind of talk about these generally, but you can always reach out to me through that QR code, and we can always discuss this one on one in greater capacity. But basically, we need to examine our beliefs, our attitudes, and learn to respond through struggles, and learn to grow out of that situation. So you come out with more of a growth mindset. And while everything can be taken away from us, even things that are meaningful, we can, and the only thing that we can control is our attitude in those kinds of circumstances. So we want to figure out how can we cope by identifying what things can help us to grow and changing our attitude in difficult situation. We also want to fight our fears and become good leaders with resilience. That helps us to make connections. We want to see the problem as not insurmountable. That means I can overcome it. Taking step by step, creating goals, moving through those goals, creating opportunities for self discovery, learning where my positives are and my weaknesses, keeping things in perspective and having a hopeful outlook, and also taking care of ourselves. I love this quote here on the left that it talks about that the great oak tree here, the strongest oak in the field or in the forest, was not shielded from the wind and the rain and the harsh sun. But in those moments, that's what allowed its roots to take hold and for it to grow. So if we have that kind of mentality, resilience can help us stay rooted and can help us to grow into a mighty oak. With resilience, we sometimes adapt to bad times, but we anticipate good times. For example, we will plan for a baby's birth or the beginning of a new job or getting married, but we don't plan ahead when there's something negative that goes on. And only when there's a crisis and a roadblock do we get concerned and say, hey, maybe I should do something a little bit different. So when challenges come, we need to bend, not break, and let the events reshape us, not break us. Think about the things going on in your life right now. What difficulties are we facing? Do we blame anybody for our problems? Is there a purpose that we might have here that we're learning from this hardship? What has it taught you about yourself biologically, psychologically, and socially? And what lessons have you learned since the beginning about this hardship? Do we see the hardship as a challenge or despair? Do we become more hopeful or discouraged? Do we look for more meaning and problem solving, or do we just quit? And do we see ourselves as stronger or weaker? Resilience research tells us that we should have, when we have adversity and depression does exist and anxiety does exist, and even when burnout exists, we can be resilient and stretch and adapt around that problem, just like these rubber bands. We can also overcome difficulty by faith in ourselves or whether it's our spiritual beliefs, but also by the very strong power of our mind to reframe our thinking. Again, resilience is the ability to adapt and proceed successfully despite any threatening or challenging circumstances. It is the ability to adjust our sails when there is a storm, the ability to stretch around a difficulty. So, resilience can be quite complex from the biological research, but this is a good summary of my own research, and also in interacting with clients. That resilience is not the absence of difficulty, but it is the conscious choice to experience the full spectrum of human emotions, to not be consumed by them, and to thrive despite them. Resilience creates an upward spiral of well-being instead of a unraveling and downward spiral. It allows people to look at different possibilities and be optimistic, and to create a list of coping skills that they can use, and therefore playing a bad hand well. When we're feeling good about our emotions, we tend to have more resilient people. If not, and there are symptoms of depression, you can get treatment. It is not something that will kill us, but something that will make us stronger. And like Maya Angelou also said, we may encounter many defeats, but we should not be defeated. Resilience is about rising every time we fall, not staying down. So, adversity is a very normal part of life. It's been around for centuries. We've been given the strengths to kind of deal with it, and those strengths are inside of us. Resilience is also a journey, which means that sometimes you may not feel very resilient, but you have to persevere through the storms, apply resilience skills, and face that problem head on. Sometimes people are in denial when a problem happens. Then they realize that there has been a problem, but they don't give up or give in to it. And then they search for meaning and attaining a correct kind of connection to our past while hoping for a positive future. Resilience is also about balance. So if you don't have balance in your life, you may want to examine that in so many areas. And also look for your social support system that is consistent. The key word is consistency, because again, you want to balance all eight of those areas. You want to schedule time for yourself, evaluate your stressors, prioritize a healthy lifestyle, good sleep, good food, good healthy food, good drinks, that kind of thing. And we want to communicate and connect with others that are also learning to communicate. So, again, we've talked about this slide already. Make connections, accept that the problem is not insurmountable, that you can work towards a common goal. Research also tells us that when we reflect and look back at all the times that we have been challenged but came out of that situation, we can challenge ourselves to apply what we applied before to this current situation. We can gather corroborating evidence from our family and friends regarding our past, but we are starting to utilize our past story to apply it to the current things today. And then we tailor make a solution for our current problem that will help us to anticipate and solve past, present, and future situations through a supportive network. Again, don't stick your head in the hand, face it head on. This will increase your self esteem. Also, we need to encourage to find secure attachments. If we are feeling guilty, to use it as a lesson learned or a lesson learned tool to help us to not feel so guilty. So that will help a lot as well. We want to encourage one another to create meaning out of difficult situations, focus on our strengths rather than only pointing out weaknesses, and accept that sometimes challenges are a part of life. We should also talk to someone about our feelings, because when we talk about our feelings, we are able to change them. We are able to manage them. So we want to talk about things like happiness, anger, which again is the braking system. We want to talk about depression, that something is just not right here. And if I'm feeling depressed, I need to investigate why. And anger is a common emotion as well. We don't want to always act out on our anger, but again, the more we name our emotions, the more we're able to do something positive about them. So you can start in the middle of this circle with those basic emotions I just listed, and then branch out into the different colors to be more articulate with your feelings. With young children, we're showing them the graph on the left where they are able to point out what feelings they're having by which emoji. Talk to only people that are warm, genuine, empathetic, consistent, and patient. And resilient leaders, in particular, do listen very well. They just are not domineering over other people. We communicate well with our verbal communication as well, not confused kind of face like this or your wrists balled up, but you have empathy for the people that are working for you and confidence that you will be able to communicate. And then you're going to be able to give them and receive feedback from them, and maybe even using accessibility type things like communication that can help us as well. Good leaders also use these seven models of resilience. One is being competent, meaning you have The ability to do something because you've gathered enough information. Confidence means I believe I can. Connecting to others, building our character and our personality, contributing to others, and contributing to another person. Sometimes coping and having um, the ability to have a bunch of different skills can help us to cope and feel in control as well. Again, we want to stop the negative thoughts and reframe them into something positive, because we tend to see things how we see them, the lens through which we see them, not the way things actually are. Again, gratitude helps us to appreciate what we have and to help our difficulties and challenges, to manage them through gratitude, because this shifts our perspective from what's not going well to what is going well. You can practice gratitude by journaling, by thanking somebody. All of those are different types. Curiosity is up there as well in your graph, and that means keeping an open mind as you learn new things, whether it's a new role at your company, whether it's something going on and you need to clean it up or talk about it. But either way, you have curiosity that helps us to interact with the other person. It is also really important to dream. And again, you can journal about experiments, about your experiences and experiments that you've run, who you would like to be, the goals that you have, losses, family events, strengths, gratitude. And you can give somebody an assessment that goes along with this as well. And that will also help. When you problem solve, you should list all of the things that could be going wrong. And this may take some time, and sometimes teenagers don't like to do this because, again, they're self conscious. So, again, you want to identify ways that you're going to problem solve by listing everything that you're going to do. You're going to pick one of those things, you're going to do it, and then you're going to evaluate, is this working or not? We also want to slow down and savor positive experiences, because that stores good memory in our memory banks from which we can withdraw from later. Again, we want to balance many different parts of our life: our spiritual, our physical, intellectual, recreational, and the final goal. We want to balance all of these things to help us to have good wellness. Here's the positive emotions again. Here's the altruism. Here's the 24 character strengths. You can pick a few out of this list, or identify ways to kind of pick out what's important to you in this list. And again, you would get a printout about which ones are number one, two, three, all the way to 24, in what order. And that is what makes you unique with your strengths. Strengths are not like talents. Talents eventually get removed if you don't practice enough. Strengths don't have, I'm sorry, talents don't have any morality attached to them. So they can be across generations, across situations, and across illnesses and time. We also want to have bold, resilient leaders that manage burnout and are passionate about what they do. You could do this by mixing and finding a balance between what you love, what needs the world has, what is paid for, and what is something that we are good at. To be a resilient leader, you need to express gratitude. You need to know your strengths and use them. You need to savor good experiences, have positive emotions that you can store in your memory bank, and examine your own story of resilience and random acts of kindness. In this case, you would have resilience across all four things here, because we are multifaceted biologically, psychologically, emotionally, and even spiritually. And I also want to show this art form out of Japan as we come near a close here. In Japan, when there is a broken pottery, they don't throw it away. They actually take it and carefully paint it together back with gold. And this highlights the fact that when this bowl is broken, it actually becomes more valuable, more beautiful, and more strong, because it has been glued together by this expensive gold, right? And the same thing with people. If they are broken by something, we need to stand by them and support them, not just toss them aside. Same thing with this image, which I love very much, that shows a lot of potential. That if I'm looking at an egg, something that seems to have no potential, I can eventually grow into a full functioning bird. And this is the point of this article. And isn't that just the perfect image for resilience? I may not see any growth, I may feel really small, but at the end of the day, I will soar if I watch my thoughts, my words, my actions my habits, and my character. So that is really important as well. Leaders wear many hats, in particular women, and therefore you can go forth and do so resiliently. Thank you so very much. You can reach me at these QR codes. The green one is my WhatsApp, and the right one is my website. Thank you.
Yes, Christine, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. It was a fabulous talk, and we
Thank
have
you.
gained a lot of knowledge from your presentation. And we got a lot, so many questions from the audience, Christine.
Mhm.
And we will post those questions to your email so you can respond there as we are
Okay,
running out
that
of
sounds
time,
great.
right? Yeah.
That's awesome. I'd be happy to respond to each of you, and
Yeah.
you can certainly reach out anytime for me to answer questions.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for a valuable time today, Christine.
Thank you so.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye bye.